Hello and welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. So in the previous video, I spoke about, as always, go ahead, follow me on YouTube, sorry, GitHub, visit my website. And if you have any questions, you can email me right then. So in the previous video, I spoke about the free code camp, the C# fundamentals certification and so on. And I will be using that as my reference point for the next few videos. So let's start with your first C# code. Okay, so here let's go ahead and finally, like this is the third video so far. I've only been talking about how to install things, how to do this, how to do that. Finally, now we can go ahead and start doing some coding. So there are three things we are trying to touch upon here. We're going to look at comments. Okay, we are going to look at console.writeLine, and we are going to look at console.write. Okay, so first step, let's go ahead and fire up Visual Studio. Hopefully you have already installed it from the previous videos. I already explained how to install Visual Studio. So let's fire it up. Let's go to Visual Studio 2022. Here we go. Okay, and then I want to go ahead and create a new project. Let's do that. And normally you would use GitHub for this. I have put some GitHub videos on my channel. Hopefully you'll check it out. So we want to use a console project. So if you go to here, select C#. I'm on Windows, so I'm going to choose Windows, and and then I'm going to go and select console. And as explained, we'll use this one. All right, the console project. So let's click next. And here this is my dummy practice thing, so I don't want to put it on GitHub, but hopefully you are putting all your practice code on GitHub. And here I'm going to say to delete 11/9, the September 11, that's when I made this video. So let's go ahead and create a new folder for that. I'll delete it later, and then there it is, and I'm going to call this video 3 because that's really what it is. So video 3 first C# code. As much as possible, I'm going to try avoiding copy pasting. So I will type every word, which might make the videos a little bit slow and longer, but it is fine. I mean, again, this is for beginners and basic. So I believe as a guy who's been teaching beginners for a long time, 10+ years, slow is better than being in a rush and copy pasting. So I'm going to try to avoid copy paste as much as possible, unless I'm typing the same thing again. So okay, so there you go. .NET 8 is what I'm using, and let's hit create. Okay, there it is. So there's already some things going on in the empty console project. So what we do is we'll go ahead and rebuild. You can also hit run directly, this is fine. And then if I click on run, and I get the output hello world. So I always do that just to make sure everything is up and running, right? And of course now, so first thing, let's go ahead and talk about comments. Okay, so in any project, especially in my example project, the code for this is already available. So if you go to my GitHub account, scroll down, and you'll see there is something called C# for students. And if you open that, and here if you scroll down, there is something called free code camp C# cert code. So this is where I put all my free code camp code that I built. So a lot of folders here, a lot of chapters. For each chapter I put the code. And today's chapter is first C# code, which is here. And if you go here, you'll see a file called program.cs, and you'll see the example code right there. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put this link in the video description. So if you want to refer it, right now it's very simple, but as the classes progress, as the videos progress, things will get mighty complex. So let's keep that in mind. So let me put this link in my diary so I can put it in the description. Hold on. Yeah. Okay, all right then. So let's get back to it. So first thing is comments. So you'll see, comments is like notes. You don't have to write comments. But in my example projects, in my example code, I tend to write a lot of comments because one, I'm a tutor, so I'm always explaining things. And so comments is one way I can leave behind notes for my students, on what is happening. For example, so here it says console.writeLine. So what I could do is I could type a sentence like, hey, this is one way to explain what is happening below. So here I am, should I make that a little bit bigger? Let me see. I hope you can read it. I hope you have full screen this video, so I hope you can see it, right? If I make it small or bigger or too big, I can't type actually. So I'm gonna leave it at this size. So here I am using console write line to show a simple message. This is also called as K-man debugging, because it helps you in debugging. So I do use console or write line and K-man debugging a lot. Now, if I try to run this, now it's not saved here, so let's go ahead and save that. And if I try to run this, I'll get a bunch of errors. It says there were build errors, would like to continue and run this. I'm going to say no. So what are the errors I'm getting? I'm getting about 20 errors right now. You can see all the errors in the error list. You know, when you select an error, it will tell you the line number where it is happening. So right now the first error is on line number 3, and then line number 4. Again, there are a lot of errors, and again line number 3 errors. Yeah, these are warnings. So warnings you can ignore, but errors you have to fix before you can build the project. Now the reason I'm getting so many errors is because I'm just typing English, which is not C#. But it's supposed to be a comment. Now there are a couple of ways you can turn this sentence into a comment. So you can go to the beginning of each line and you can use // So that's what I'm going to do. So now you can see the color also changed. So it's become green color now. And now if I go ahead and save this, and if I do build, it says succeeded. So it's a comment. So the errors went away. So there you go. Now you can also see the nice green color there. It tells you that it is a comment. So when you open this, so when you're doing coding, it is important. Now you have to remember that it's almost impossible that no matter how small a project is, except when you're practicing and learning alone or something, majority of the time, even in a university, even in a small company, you're always working with other people. Okay, so a lot of times you're writing code, you're writing a lot of code. A big project will have dozens and hundreds of files and coding happening on a daily basis for weeks and months together. So comments will explain to yourself, and to others what you're doing at a specific point in time. Now, of course, there is a debate, do you even need to write comments? Do you need to write how much comments you have to write? Do you have to go to complete detail? Like, do you have to write a full story, or do you have to just leave small tidbits? That is a personal choice. And sometimes comments will be mandated by your project manager or your organization. So that's another story. But most of the time, you have to find the balance between typing too many comments and typing no comments. So extremities are always there. But in my case, as and when possible, I write short, simple comments. But sometimes when I feel like I've done something really complex or done something really difficult, then what I do is I write really lengthy comments. But then again, I'm a tutor, so I'm always in explanation mode. It's part of my lifestyle now. So sometimes I would have written so much comments, it may become excessive. So there is that. But I'm in a tutoring situation, so where I want my students to have, I would rather my students have more information. Like even these YouTube tutorial videos, I'm explaining simple concept, but the videos go on for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes 40 minutes. I don't know. I know that may be excessive, but I am a tutor and I'm looking at beginners, only. So yeah. So it's up to you. But yes, writing comments and writing documentation. We talk about documentation in projects. So this is one way of documenting things. So there you go. That's one way of writing comments. Another way is, now this is like, if it's a single line comment, then, like let's say these two things are not there, then / makes sense. Like even so you can see in line number 1, you can see in line number 3. But if you have multi-line comment, let's say if you have 10 lines of comments. So let's just say, let me just delete this. Let me just remove the comment here. Okay. All right. So now let's say this comment was like so much of comments. Sometimes I do write really long comments. Okay. So now if I start going to each line and start saying // that could take forever. Okay. So obviously there must be a better way. So let's do a block comment. So I'm going to say /*. I'm going to come to the end of this comment block and I'll say /*. So there you go. So that is another way of commenting. Now I like this one because a lot of times when I'm developing code, code is always an evolution. when you're building, you'll see this when we start tackling challenges and problems, scenarios. And what we do is we start with a skeleton code, and then when we start adding one specific item, then we add a second item, and we add a third item, and then we find a better way of doing it. And then so what happens is, you're writing a lot of code, and you want to sort of not delete it, but you don't want to be part of the code as well. So in that scenario, the block comment become very useful. You'll see this as the videos progress. So that's another way of doing it. Now, obviously, what you want to do is you want is a shortcut. Okay. Now, of course, Visual Studio has hundreds of shortcuts. I think there's even a website called Visual Studio Shortcuts. I remember that, like Visual Studio Shortcuts. I think there was a website just for shortcuts. I remember that guy. There was, I can't find that website anymore. There was a website just for Video Studio Shortcut. I guess they've shut it down now. But anyway, we have the official Microsoft shortcuts anyway. So there are a lot of shortcuts. Let me put this link as well in my diary so I can put this to the video description. So yeah, there are a lot of shortcuts, but I use some of them. For example, Control S is for saving. And for comments, the way to do that is, let's try that again. So let me remove this. And let me remove this cell. So once again, we are back to sentences with red lines and all that. So what I will do is I'll select all this. Okay. And then I'll say Control K and Control /. There you go. So I'm just going to put that in the PowerPoint. This is one I use a lot. So let me go ahead and put that here. So comments, the shortcut is Control K and then Control /. Yes. Okay. So that's something which I think you'll use a lot. I use a lot because I write a lot of comments. So I don't remember all the shortcuts, but I remember the ones that I use a lot. So there you go. That is one. That's another way. Another thing you need to remember about comments. Okay, so let's keep going. So next thing is console.write and console.writeLine. Now they both do the same thing. They show you a simple output in your console window. Now this is not of that use, when you're developing software, because you won't be using the console window at all when you're building a project. Like for example, the demo project I showed you, I already put a video about that on my channel. You can check it out, what we'll be building at the end of this really long series of tutorials. We won't be using console window. We'll be building a web API. We'll be building a microservice. We'll be building an authentication server. So there's no console at all. But when you're learning though, whatever you're learning, whether it is today, next month, next year, and the rest of your life, when you're trying out new features, the console window is the best way to try new libraries, new things, everything. And there are some projects where you actually get stuff done in the console window. So you'll be using console.writeLine and console.write a lot, especially in the learning phase. So there are two ways you can show output. So there is console.writeLine. Hello world. Let me just go ahead and try console.write as well. So this is console write. Okay, and let's put a semicolon there. Okay, so I'm just going to put a bunch of console.write, and then I will put a bunch of console.write lines. I'll mix them up. Okay, and you'll see what they do. The best way to find out what something does is to just go ahead and run it. Do it and just see what happens. Observational learning, I guess. So let's just go ahead and click on run, and you'll see what is happening. Look at that. This is what I'm talking about. So console.write does not add a new line. You can see here, especially here, this is console write, this is console write, this is console write, this is console. It doesn't go to a new line on its own. Okay. Whereas console.writeLine automatically adds a new line at the end. Now you can force a new line if you want to. Let's give it a try. So if I go here and I say /n and then I run this again, you'll see that I did force a new line by using the /n option right here. So if you want to, you can just use console.write, and whenever you want a new line to show up, you can use a /n, or you can just make your life simple by using console.writeLine. So that is the difference between both of them. But either way, there are scenarios where you want everything to come on a single line. There are scenarios where you want things to go on a new line. So that's really your call, which one you want to do. But either way, they both do the same thing. They both do the, K-man debugging thing that I keep talking about. And you'll be doing this K-man. You'll be seeing the output in the console window for all your learning, especially when you're learning the basics, because that is where you'll see the output. And without seeing output, how will you know that you are actually doing what you're supposed to do? So that is all there is to it about your first C# code comments, why we use them, what are the shortcuts, and what are the two ways to make comments. And then of course, K-man debugging with console.writeLine and console.write. And of course, what is the difference between these two? And the example code is there on my GitHub. Hopefully you can check it out. It's right here. If I put the link there, so I put all the folders here, all the chapters, from that free code camp certification. And right now I'm here in the first one, which is first C# code. The code is also available. So there you go. That's what is there from this video, and I'll see you in the next one.